When you have a situation where there's a clearly established hierarchy of, let's say, 2 or 3 prospects that are a cut above the rest, the person that really benefits is the guy that's on the outside of that next in line. Because let's say you have, in this situation, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota. Both quarterbacks that are viewed as highly thought of prospects in this year's NFL draft. 2 quarterbacks that most people believe, understandably so, will be top 10, if not top 5 picks, if not be the first 2 players taken off of the board. So who's really going to benefit? It's going to be that guy that is the number 3 quarterback, as several of these teams really have their eyes on Winston and Mariota, and they end up missing out on him. It's going to be that third guy that they're going to really work with. It's that third guy that they're really going to long for. It's that third guy that they're going to desire. It's that third guy that they actually believe that they can get. And as a result, what happens to the draft stock of that number 3 guy? His draft stock rises, and in a lot of cases, he ends up being slightly to moderately overdrafted. And when it comes to this year's draft, a lot of people believe that that number 3 guy in a 2-man quarterback class is going to be Brett Hundley out of UCLA. And I understand some of that because we're talking about a Hundley that we've been looking at for 3 years now, waiting for him to declare for the NFL draft, viewing him as a high pick whatever year he declared. So there's been buzz about him since he started as a redshirt freshman at UCLA. There was a lot of thought after last year that he might declare. He came back for his redshirt junior season. So we've been waiting for this moment. We've been focused on this moment for 3 years. And there is a lot of belief right now in the scouting community that Brett Hundley is the number 3 quarterback, especially amongst the NFL draft media, in this 2015 NFL draft. To that I say, not so fast. Now, I don't want to totally discredit Brett Hundley as a prospect because, again, he's a prospect I've been watching since 2012. He's a prospect that I've paid very close attention to. He's a guy that I have watched a lot of film of. Frankly, because of the amount of time that he's played, I've watched as much film of him as I have Marcus Mariota, and I have more to go off of than I do with Jameis Winston. And when it comes to Brett Hundley, here are some of the biggest strengths that I see that he can bring to a franchise at the NFL level. He has a strong arm. Actually, in my opinion, stronger naturally, more so than both Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota. And he can easily, comfortably make all the required NFL throws. He can put zip on the ball when he needs to, both in the short and intermediate game and in the deep game as well. He's a good athlete who can gain yards with his feet. He's not quite the scrambler of a Mariota, but he's probably a better runner with the ball than a Jameis Winston is, especially from an athleticism standpoint. What I really like about Hundley when looking at his throwing mechanics is I feel like consistently he uses his entire body well within his throwing motion, better than both Winston and Mariota do. I like those quarterbacks that are able to step up in the pocket and able to use their entire body in their throwing motion, because when they do that, their consistency and their accuracy tends to increase. The consistency and the velocity also tends to increase. And that's something I feel that based off of the film that I've seen, Brett Hundley has going for him in great abundance. He's also very physically tough. I've seen him take a lot of poundings at UCLA over the past 3 years. I mean, there's been times he's gotten rocked. He's got his shit pushed in. This is a guy that is held up to that. This is a guy that's proven to me with his size that he can take the pounding and the rigors of being a starting quarterback at the National Football League level. And what I also like is at times that Brett Hundley, to me, shows some really good touch on different types of throws, whether they be slants or quick outs or posts or out and ups. There were deep passes, throwing the 9 route. He's shown some really good touch. Not all the time, but he's given me flashes enough hope to say that he could make some of those throws required to be at least a decent quarterback at the NFL level. But yes, there are plenty of things to like about Brett Hundley's game, and I understand why some people envision him being able to make an effective transition to at least be a solid starter at the National Football League level. However, I have some severe, significant concerns about how his game is going to translate. First, he has some ball security issues. He seems to have trouble at times holding on to the football, has some really bad, atrocious fumbles, which is really surprising to me considering his hands are bigger than both Jameis Winston's and Marcus Mariota's. He also has those moments every game, 1 to 2 really bad, horrible decisions. Like you look at the USC game this year, that first play, you're deep in your own territory and he's throwing that out pass. didn't read the USC defender, and it ends up being a pick six. You go back and you watch Brett Hundley, more often than not, you see 1 to 2 really terrible, horrible, back-breaking decisions made in every game. Another thing that really concerns me is that while he's a really good athlete, there are times where he doesn't seem that natural at it. What's even more concerning to me is, as good of an athlete as he is, it doesn't really translate as a passer. Scrambling and throwing on the move is not a strength of his game. And in particular, once he gets forced from the pocket, as he often does, he drops his eyes when he's scrambling, which means that an NFL team could plan on the fact that is once you pressure Hundley and you get him on the move, you don't have to play the pass. You can come up and defend the run because he's going to take off with the ball because he's not trying to keep the defense honest. He's not going through his progressions or his reads. He's not looking down the field. He's looking to run. His eyes dropping to me is a huge problem. What's even bigger problem for me when it comes to Hundley's game is that he folds like paper with pressure in his face. This is something that's really, really concerning to me. This is one of these things that when I see it, it really makes me back off and pause when looking at a prospect at the quarterback position. It's what really backed me off of Blaine Gabbert in 2011's draft class because I saw a guy that as soon as he got any pressure in his face, he folded like a tent. And that's exactly what I see on film when it comes to Brett Hundley. Far too often, whether the pressure was coming from the edge or pressure was coming up the middle, as soon as that pressure came, it was like he was deer in the headlights. There's a lot of things you could do at the NFL level and get away with. There are also some things that you can't get away with. And you can't get away with that deer in the headlights look. He doesn't retreat necessarily in the pocket. At times, he just freezes. And it's like he wilts and he folds. And that's the last thing I want to see out of a quarterback at the NFL level. So there are a lot of questions to his game that make me really frankly wonder what people are seeing that I'm not seeing after 3 years to where they think there's an outside chance that this guy's getting taken at the tail end of round 1 or the beginning of round 2 in the 2015 NFL draft. When it comes to Brett Hundley and projecting him at the NFL level, there's one comparison that I keep coming back to. There's one player that keeps coming into my mind when I think of Brett Hundley, and that is Geno Smith. And maybe this is me learning the lessons of quarterback classes of the past. I was higher on Geno Smith in 2013 than maybe I should have. I should have seen some of the warning signs, and I did not. You could say what you want about him in playing in New York in that Jets organization, and I'm there with you. But at the same point in time, there are some concerns there about Geno. There were there when he was at West Virginia that are there for me with Brett Hundley coming out of UCLA. Here's a guy with a strong arm. Geno had a stronger arm than people gave him credit for, but there are times where he just makes terrible, horrible decisions. Geno did it at West Virginia sometimes, even though he played in a system that was designed to protect him. And most certainly Brett Hundley has those moments where he makes some terrible, horrible decisions at the college level. What's he going to do when the talent level around him on all phases increases at the NFL level? What also concerned me about Geno Smith coming out of college was the fact that he was a good athlete, but I didn't feel like he always utilized that athleticism. At times he was afraid to utilize it, and it didn't really translate to his game. And I see some similarities there with Brett Hundley. While he's a more willing scrambler, I think at times he's more willing as a runner, and that athleticism doesn't translate to how he plays the quarterback position as a passer, in particular being able to throw the ball on the move to the right and to particular the left. And what I also have concerns about with Brett Hundley is what concern I had similar with Geno Smith in 2013 that I should have focused on more. Again, this is me learning from my mistakes of the past, is when I looked at Geno Smith, as the level of competition got better in the second half of the season and he faced more pressure in his face, he kind of wilted and folded a little bit. His accuracy suffered, his confidence suffered, and I see that with Brett Hundley too. Here's a guy that as the pressure was in his face, he wilted, he folded. His velocity dropped some, his accuracy dropped quite a bit, his confidence seemed to be rattled and shaken. While they're both tough guys that could take a pounding, where they're both guys that you'll want to like more, the simple fact of the matter is Brett Hundley is less than the more that so many out there have tried to make him. So I don't agree with the assessment that Brett Hundley is clearly the number 3 quarterback in this class. No, I do not. I think he's the number 4 quarterback in this class, and I think he is much farther away from Winston and Mariota than even a lot of the NFL draft media likes to make you believe. All this talk about Hundley maybe sneaking into the tail end of round 1, the early portion of round 2, I don't get it. I don't see it. Because here's a guy that I watched at UCLA in 2014 that in many ways was the exact same player as he was at UCLA in 2012 as a redshirt freshman. Where was the progression in his game? Where was the improvement in his game? And where is he going to get better in terms of standing tall and poised in the pocket? If he can't do it at the college level, what the hell makes people think that he's going to do it at the NFL level? In my opinion, he's the number 4 quarterback in this class in what is frankly in a lot of ways a 2 quarterback class, so it's not really saying a whole lot. I wouldn't touch Brett Hundley with the 2nd round pick. I'm not even sure if I would touch Brett Hundley with the 3rd round pick. The earliest I might even consider drafting Brett Hundley is in the 4th round. Now, is this some ways maybe an overcorrection for how much I like Geno Smith in 2013? Perhaps. But that's part of the thing. Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. And if you don't learn from your mistakes of the past, you're doomed to repeat them. And when I watch Brett Hundley on film over the past 3 years, what have I seen a lot? I've seen Geno Smith. And I can most certainly assure you, if you see Geno Smith when he was at West Virginia, you wouldn't be taking him in the 2nd round of the 2015 NFL draft and feel good about him. What would it be? A 4th round pick that you took a flyer on because maybe he would figure things out. That's exactly what Brett Hundley is, a 4th round pick that you take a flyer on that you hope can figure things out because some of that upside and potential is there, but he is a very long ways away from realizing it.